Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to our Team Tuesday this week with Ademar Perez. Hi Ademar, welcome back.
Hey Vasco, thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. So Ademar, on Tuesdays we talk about teams, of course, but before we go into that, do share with us, what was the book that most influenced you in your career as a Scrum Master?
Ooh, that's a tough one, Vasco. There's a few good books. I'll talk a little bit about Coaching Agile Teams, which is Lyssa Adkins' book, which was great. But today I think that there's a book that was very influential to me, and it's called The Scrum Fieldbook, a masterclass on accelerating performance, getting results, and defining the future, which is by the son of the founder of Scrum, JJ Sutherland. And this book was very impactful for me, partly because it really validated in my mind that Scrum is just not a framework or a way of working that was made just for software. It goes beyond software. It's a way of working that can work for any industry and any kind of organization that desires to continuously improve and is committed to that journey of continuous improvement.
Absolutely. And a great point it is. One of the things that we very often talk about when we talk about Scrum is the collaboration between the team members, the collaboration with the outside of the team, like stakeholders and so on. And any field where teams need to work well together can definitely benefit from Scrum. And I'm reminded that I want to say like 2 years back, maybe it was 1.5 years, but something like that. A book was mentioned in this Tuesday episode, by the way, where the author had created a fantasy story. So you had a village and you had dragons, and the dragons were attacking the village. And the village comes together as a Scrum team to figure out how to build a trap for dragons to defend themselves from dragons. And of course, it is an allegory, a metaphor for what Scrum teams do, but it's a great example of how the same concepts can be applied even in that fictional environment, but to demonstrate how teams come together, how they work well together, and how from that you drive value, right? So a great point indeed. And you also mentioned Coaching Agile Teams. Now, that book has been mentioned here many times, so we don't need to go through all of the details. But what's one thing you remember from Coaching Agile Teams by Lyssa Adkins?
Yeah. It's her perspective, her innovative perspective on what the Scrum Master or Agile Coach role is, and really diving into the different facets of coaching, mentoring, teaching, and facilitation. I think that Lyssa Adkins was the first to kind of paint that picture on what this potential career could look like. And I think a lot of the Agilists, the very prominent Agilists in the community have built off of her work. And so I'm always internally thankful for Lyssa Adkins' work in the community, because it's been so influential in how organizations and how the Agile community views the coach role. And she pretty much sees Scrum Master and Agile Coach as being very similar roles. I think very early on in my career as a Scrum Master, there was very little talk about coaching as a skill. Versus I think that a Scrum Master without any coaching skills is lacking a key competency in their ability to achieve results as a Scrum Master.
Absolutely. Great points. Absolutely. We'll put the link to these books on the show notes so that people can easily find them. All right. Next, we turn our attention to the teams and how sometimes they create their own problems, as it were. So we want to dive into a story of a team you worked with, Ademar, and specifically the pattern of behavior that emerged over time, not necessarily, suddenly it's there, but like these slow things that moved and changed over time, but ultimately led to big problems in that team. So share that story with us, Ademar.
I think a few years ago, I was working with a team that was super reliant on the product owner to create user stories for the team, prioritize for the team, and the engineering team would jump into Scrum ceremonies and really just wait for the PO to set the tone. And there wasn't any level of challenging what was being presented. And I thought that was a pretty dangerous dynamic where the team just accepted whatever was being told, by the PO. If there was a priority that was brought into refinement, the team wouldn't challenge it. Going into sprints, there was goals and pieces of work that were well defined by the PO, and the team would just say yes. And Vasco, we all know what the dangers of saying yes are, and there was a point where the team was not delivering on their sprint goals. Obviously, the root cause of that was that there wasn't any true collaboration going on. It was just I guess the members were just following what the leader in the room, and that led to a lot of technical challenges within this team.
So talk to us. Like this behavior of not challenging or even not asking anything from the product owner, just silently and politely nodding. Where might that come from? Like from your experience, not only that team but also from that team, of course. What might lead a team to take that let's call it backseat perspective in the relationship with the product owner?
I think it comes from the organization's culture, and so. At that time, I think the teams were being told by the managers that listen to your PO. They're a customer, and I think that was a big mistake where we were building a product for customers, but the team was being told that the PO is the customer, and in that case. It gave the PO the authority to make decisions, prioritize in a vacuum, and pretty much just leverage the engineering team just to build instead of leveraging the creative capacity that engineers have, which Marty Cagan, the pioneer of product management, speaks a lot about. And I've been heavily diving into product thinking lately.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. By the way, I'll put the link to Marty Cagan. He's been a topic here on the show several times because of his work, and also because some of the people who followed him and worked with him have been here on the show as well, like Jeff Patton. And you said something here that I would like, kind of highlight and amplify, which is that the teams were being told to listen to the PO. We were building a product for customers, but we were being told that the PO was the customer. So in fact, the PO replaced the customer. So the PO wasn't there to help the team succeed. The PO was there to replace the customer, which is a totally different setup, right? The PO is then no longer a contributor, a team member, but the PO becomes the dictator, the only voice that you listen to. And that's really dangerous because first, the PO might, but also might not be the technical specialist, which means that they can't even think about what's possible because they don't understand the technology. If that is the case, having the PO as the only source of what gets done is going to narrow down the team and, of course, decrease a lot the motivation and creativity that the team can express.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, Vasco. And I think about sort of the changes in the Scrum Guide recently, and I really love the less prescription and also the change where the the PO is no longer distinguished from the team. Now the PO, the team, and the Scrum Master are one unit, working towards a shared product goal. And I think, although that may seem very trivial, but it really opens the world to what collaboration really looks like, and what it looks like for cross-functional teams to be accountable for outcomes. So really love that change in the Scrum Guide, where it brings all the cross-functional goals together.
Absolutely. Great point. We'll put the link to the Scrum Guide on the show notes so that people can take a look and read for themselves. Ademar, thank you for sharing that with us today.
Absolutely, Vasco. Thank you.
Tuesday is Team Day here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. But tomorrow we talk about something that goes beyond the work we do with the teams. We will talk about how to lead change and what our guests have learned from leading and participating in change programs during their career. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.